Hey there, Mr. Redder here.
And she who requires free babysitting.
Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories. Karen uses me for free babysitting, ends up regretting it. I, 23 female, used to be very close with my family. My siblings have kids, and I used to be a big part of their life. I'm always taking good care of them. On my free time, I never do anything for myself. I spend it always with them because I love them. I always go above and beyond for them. Not to mention, I spent lots of money on them. I'm the aunt that never said no. My siblings have more money than me, but all my money seems to go to their kids. Now, this is not my siblings' fault, it's just what I choose to do. I love them like my own, and I never felt like I was being used by my siblings to be a free babysitter because I truly enjoyed it from my heart. I don't have friends of my own. I considered my siblings to be my friends. However, a year ago, I had a terrible injury and I couldn't walk or use my hands for 6 months. I went from being the girl that helped everyone out to being unable to help myself. I couldn't walk to the bathroom, kitchen, anywhere. For the first months of my injury, I lost 30 pounds and I was severely skinny. I lost all that weight due to being unable to cook for myself. There were times I needed help, even using my spoon. I needed to be fed. No one helped me. There were times I literally cut my hair off because I no longer could take care of my long, thick hair. There were times I couldn't take showers. It was the most depressing time of my life. I went from dealing with my injury to dealing with all kinds of problems due to not taking care of myself, not eating properly, etc. Fast forward. After months of suffering and struggling, I was able to slowly heal. I was very mad at my family when I finally healed. I realized they used to call me every day before my injury because they could use me as a babysitter, but during my injury, they acted as if I didn't even exist. There were no phone calls, no checking up on me to see if I needed anything, nothing. I did have high expectations from them because we were very close family. I was there for them through anything, but I didn't receive the same love back. The other day, my sister called me to say her kids miss me and to come babysit them. I said no. That's the first time I've ever said no to her. Why is she calling me now that I'm recovered when she didn't even show up for me during the worst times of my life? She said it's because I never told them I needed help. Now they know exactly what I was going through. They knew I couldn't walk. They knew I couldn't use my hands. They saw me with their own eyes first day of my injury at the hospital, then completely disappeared on me. I feel I'm only good enough when I'm helping them, but when I'm unable to do anything, I'm unwanted. I'm going to be all alone, but I decided to cut my siblings out of my life permanently. I will no longer be watching their kids for them. I'll let them know this, and I've changed my number. They think it's evil to do this to your family. What do you guys think? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Every relationship must be a two-way street. It sounds like your siblings only want you when they need you for something. I just feel terrible reading your post. You can still be a great aunt when you can and want to, but you don't have to say yes every time to be a great aunt. Not the jerk. The only evil people are the ones that up and disappeared when you needed them. Did they ever ask you if you need anything to just let them know? Good for you, OP, for recognizing your worth. I'm truly sorry this happened to you. Am I the jerk for ruining a family dinner? I'm known in the family to be a control freak about preparing food. In fact, in my family, there are 2 dinners in the year that all members come for, 30 people. And before I took over, all dinners were extremely late. There were always problems with seasoning or poor preparation. I'm organized, and for every meal, I have a spreadsheet with everything I need to make a huge-scale dinner. At first, they didn't respect it, but after seeing that my method was useful, everyone joined in and allowed me to be the head of the organization. Since then, dinners are ready on time. Everyone praises and repeats the dish. Not very common. It takes 1 to 2 days to prepare the meal. I don't ask them to help because I know I'm serious with organization. But if the person wants to, I ask them to respect the process. Another fact, my mother was a cook for 1 year and my sister-in-law is studying gastronomy. The situation. Sunday was one of our yearly dinners and I was the head as usual. My sister-in-law, my mother, my aunt, and uncle would help me. This would be my sister-in-law's first family dinner and she offered to help. During the preparation, my mother started to do several things wrong, and every time I said something, she said something like, "Stay calm, a wrong thing will not lead to anything." The problem is that she did so much wrong, skipping so many necessary steps in the food that most things I had to redo or give a second look. She continued to help even though I said it wasn't necessary. I broke down when I just commented something about steps with my sister-in-law and she corrected me. I was going to comment, but my mother said,
I think you better cool off in the pool and let those with experience sort it out.
I accepted, grabbed a glass of wine, the spreadsheet with me, and spent the whole day in the pool, ignoring when they asked me to come back. So dinner was late, poorly seasoned, undercooked, and no one had a second dish. My mother later said that I ruined dinner and humiliated our family in front of relatives in revenge. I shouldn't take that serious because it was a silly family joke. By the way, I love making these dinners, and yes, my mother and sister-in-law's behavior is common. Am I the jerk? Someone asked for examples of what she did wrong. She put too much salt on one of the meats and it was inedible. There had to be 10 of something for the food and she cut it in half because it was too much. It wasn't. She started to make rice very early and we used the pan first for other food and the rice is last because it's the biggest and heaviest pan. My spreadsheet basically has the amounts and how long each cooking ingredient goes. I point out when they can get the quantities wrong, too much or too little, or when they start making food that is for a long time before or after. Not the jerk. You did exactly what your mother suggested you should in her rude way. Good for you for having a nice day in the pool. The last person who gets to complain is her. Not the jerk. The mom kicked OP out of the kitchen because she was trying to impress her new daughter-in-law. Then when it went wrong, she blamed OP instead of taking responsibility. I half think mom was low-key bullying OP to impress her new guests. Am I the jerk for telling my sister it's her own fault she's alienated from the family? I'm one of 3 siblings, 29 female, 27 female, me, and 22 male. This all started about 5 years ago when my older sister came to me and told me she was looking into our genealogy and she wanted me to do one of those novelty genetic tests. I wasn't enthusiastic about it, but she was weirdly insistent, so I gave her the sample she asked for and moved on, not really giving it much more thought. At no point did I have a digital login for any results. I also never thought to mention this to my parents. A few months after this, sister moved 6 hours away for another job and was non-communicative. She would call dad every once in a while, but brother and I found that if we didn't call or text her first, we wouldn't hear from her, and she basically cut mom off outright. When questioned about this, she would refuse to acknowledge that's what she was doing. Ultimately, we all just accepted it. Mom was totally baffled and brokenhearted, and the rest of us naturally became less close with sister as a result. Even she and dad only talk a few times a year now, and none of us have seen her in person in 5 years. Earlier this year, brother did a 23andMe and got weird results that led to hard conversations. Mom and dad came clean that the 3 of us were donor conceived, a choice they made because dad is infertile. They apologized for not telling us earlier, but dad felt strongly about not telling us because he never wanted us to think of him as any less than our dad. Dad called sister and told her this too after we talked, and she basically had a breakdown on the phone. It turns out she knew dad wasn't her biological father and firmly believed for 5 years that mom had cheated on dad and had been nursing intense resentments as a result. Apparently, she did a genetics test 5 years ago and was puzzled that the ancestry info didn't match what we know about our dad's family. That's when she came to me to get a sample. She sent it to the lab with hers and they confirmed the results were genetic half-siblings with the same mother and different fathers. She drew her own conclusions from there, that dad was my biological father and not hers, and that mom had had an affair and uprooted her life to get a fresh start. She's now furious about the situation and feels like she's been robbed of the last 5 years. When we last talked, I was maybe less sympathetic than I should have been, and I told her that cutting us off with no explanation was an insane move, and if she had told us even a fraction of what was going on, it could have been cleared up years ago. I acknowledged mom and dad messed up here by not being truthful about our genetic identities, which I'm also struggling with my own feelings on. But in the end, it was her decision to do this dramatic move and slow fade with zero explanation. I also expressed how hurt brother and I had been to be left out of her life and that it wasn't fair to punish us for what she thought had happened. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk by a mile. You just wanted to comprehend what was going on while your sister was being shady. She also made that assumption that your mom cheated, and while I'm sure your dad is a respectable guy, it probably left your mom heartbroken to just feel cut off from her own kid like that. You didn't even do anything that bad as a follow-up. You just stated that it hurt you and your brother. You're a good person, just looking out for those around you. Keep being that good person. Your parents messed up this one. This is all on them. Your sister could have blown it wide open, and what if it was affairs? Then the whole family would be a mess. A wine owner freaked out over a corkage fee. I've been a server for 6 years, and I've seen my fair share of entitled people. However, one person has my blood boiling forever. I had a man come into my restaurant and get takeout. He then asked me to open a bottle of wine, which I told him per company policy, it would be a $20 corkage fee. He told me this was sneaky BS and that I'm stealing from him. I told him it was a normal business practice, and he looked at me and said, "I own this wine and have never heard of this BS." I said, "Okay, you still have to pay for it." He responded by rolling his eyes and telling me I don't know high-class wine like his. I gave him a free sample of a wine we have, and he spat it back in his glass and rudely shoved it back. When my 17-year-old host gave him his food, he said, "Here's your tip," and threw a $1 bill in his face while he walked out, giving him a gesture. I was shocked by this and looked up their website, and sure enough, it was the owner himself that we had just interacted with. Months later, we received a shipment of their wine in, and I told my manager about the encounter about this dude. He then returned the wine and asked them to apologize. We got a response from their vice president of the company. He said, "Owner is an important man in the community, and you're a pathological liar who should be fired." It makes no sense for a server to lie about an interaction and put their job on the line. The VP said that I was definitely acting sneaky for not treating him with proper respect and not being a good server. So we definitely just can't stand these people. We also later found out that he owns a wine production company. He also never bought his winery. His parents bought it for him, so I know he's an entitled jerk. So we've told all the other restaurant owners, servers, and bartenders in our area, and anyone who loves wine, the truth about this jerk. The most expensive tip ever. Nearly 15 years ago, I went to work for a company. The intent was for me to complete a project in quality and then move over into program management, but someone quit and I was asked to fill in as a customer quality engineer. This meant that every month I traveled to customer sites, did the first pass analysis of our defective products, and got yelled at. A lot. It really sucked. Also worth mentioning, our branch of the company was too small to use the corporate travel, so for every trip, I was scouring discount travel sites to find the cheapest flight, hotel, and car. I was ridiculously vigorous in seeking best prices. If the crappiest car was $32 a day and the not-so-crappy car was $34 a day, I picked the $32 car just to save the company $2 a day. One fine trip, several months in, was spectacularly awful. Not only did I have a truly terrible car, the hotel was all new depths of yuck. My shoes stuck to the carpet in my room, and the security flipper thing on the door was plastic. Also, it was in the worst part of town, and I worried about my safety to the point that I ended up pulling that little couch over to block the door and sleeping on it. Adding to my misery, I was sick. I had some creeping crud that plugged my sinuses. Normally, I'd have canceled the trip, but the customer was in an uproar about our continued repeating defects and required someone to be there. I made this trek every month, and once during every trip, I would eat at the local Outback Steakhouse. It was a known quantity. The people who worked there were great, and it helped me to have that connection. On this particular trip, I made my way to the Outback for dinner, and I was clearly sick and miserable, and the workers took care of me. They sat me next to the fireplace, brought me tea, and had the kitchen make me chicken noodle soup even though it wasn't on the menu. I nearly cried, I was so grateful. My bill for dinner was less than $10, so I charged $20. Yes, more than a 100% tip, but their kindness kept me going. I got home, did my expense report, and turned it in. My director called me into his office and screamed at me about how the corporate policy was 10% tip and how it should never exceed 15%, and what was wrong with me for paying them so much. Remember, total bill, including the excessive tip, was $20. It broke me. Well, it shattered my loyalty to the company's bottom line. So I made them give me the corporate travel policy where the tip policy was outlined, and from that moment on, I followed the corporate travel policy exactly. No more crappy $32 a day cars. I'm in midsize or better. No more flying out at 4 a.m. in the center seat. The flights fit my schedule and I sat where I wanted. No more scary hotels in the worst part of town. Now I'm staying at the nicest executive hotel allowed by the policy. The cost of my trips were pretty regularly double or triple what they had been before, adding up to thousands of dollars a year, but I never disobeyed their allowable tip policy again. The true irony. The corporate tip policy actually had verbiage that said exceptional service could be recognized with an additional gratuity, but basically don't make a habit of it. Also, the allowable per diem was $50 a day, and a receipt was only required if over that amount, so the tip that started the whole thing was within per diem, allowable for exceptional service, and the receipt for it had not been necessary. Am I the jerk for telling my brother he'll probably end up bitter and alone? I, 22 male, have a brother who's 27 and a sister who's 29. My brother didn't have an easy childhood. He was bullied at school, and the other kids told teachers that he was an instigator. They believed them, and my parents believed the teachers. As a result, my brother grew up quite isolated, and anger became his main defense mechanism. He tends to fly off the handle quickly and lashes out at any and everyone. We never had a close relationship growing up, but we've bonded as we got older over how our childhood affected us all. Sister, as the eldest, felt copious amounts of pressure to be perfect, and I, as the youngest, pretty much raised myself. Our parents have since apologized, but to be fair, they grew up thinking financially providing for your kids was all they needed to do. They didn't know where they were going wrong at the time, and we were too young to articulate how we felt. We've had several open conversations about it since. They've apologized, and we've been a united front for the last 4 or 5 years, minus some hiccups. We were at our parents' house over the weekend, and my brother left a plate on the side after my mom had just done the dishes. My sister told my bro not to leave it. He got defensive, and they started arguing. It was petty back and forth, normal sibling stuff, until my brother hit below the belt and said he doesn't know why she's so pressed about a plate anyway. She has bigger things going on in her house to worry about. For context, her and her husband have had money troubles and recently borrowed money from us to cover their mortgage. Sister didn't say anything, just started crying. I stepped in and told him he had gone too far. He needs to learn to control his anger, because all he ever does when faced with any minor conflict is to go for the jugular, and no one with any self-respect will stay around him. He's never been able to hold a relationship, girlfriends or friends. I went on a spiel and ended by saying his rough childhood doesn't give him license to be an insufferable jerk who will probably end up bitter and alone. My dad and sister agree and think, though harsh, it's something he needed to hear. But my mom thinks I was out of line. We've spoken about therapy before, had many heart-to-hearts, but he's firmly against therapy and just doesn't change. To be honest, I love him, but it's exhausting being around him sometimes. I thought tough love would help, but he's blocked me on everything, so I think I may have gone too far. Am I the jerk? Everyone sucks here. He's the jerk for going for the jugular over a minor matter. You're the jerk for also going for the jugular with your end up bitter and alone talk. Everyone sucks here. He shouldn't have said what he said. It was uncalled for. Equally, while it's a conversation that needed to be had, the way you worded it in the moment was cruel. Explaining to him kindly that you are concerned he's pushing people away and offering to support him to find help would have been the right way to handle it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his brother? Please let us know.
Wait, is this really so out of the ordinary? I thought all families talk to each other like this.
Am I the jerk for choosing to move across the country to be with my daughter, leaving my son and grandkids behind? My wife passed, and I've been a little lost in my life since. My daughter, Angie, moved to Colorado for college and made a life for herself. She and her husband are looking to buy their first home, and their budget is essentially the most fixer-upper of all time. My son-in-law is a great kid, but he is no handyman. Angie is a natural at this sort of thing, though. I came up with the idea that I could move out to Colorado and help them fix up a home if they buy one. They immediately agreed. I've always been drawn to the Southwest, but more than that, growing up, Angie, who's now 36, was a very troubled young woman. I also worked the night shift for most of her childhood, so there were years where I felt I didn't really know her. Her moving to Colorado was the best thing she ever did. She's a late bloomer, but she's trying now. I went to tell my son Eric, who's 40, last week. He was incredibly surprised and very hurt. He and his wife have 3 kids who are all under 5. He's upset that I'm choosing his sister over the grandkids, saying that they don't deserve to be discarded by their grandpa because his sister made a lot of bad choices and can't afford to take care of herself, and that she had her chance at a childhood and it's their turn now, and that I have to be the one to tell them that I don't want to live by them anymore. I want to live by my daughter. I told him that I was disappointed in his reaction and that he thinks that way of his sister. At that point, his wife got home and joined the pile-on, talking about how she's shocked any grandparent would make this choice. Eric said that, what, is Angie more important than his kids? And I said, darn right she is. She's my daughter. He told me to leave, so I did. I really do have to wonder if I'm the jerk here, if my choice is really that shockingly bad. Edit. I wanted to bring up a few things. A lot of responses are going out of their way to create their own version of events, and it's a little strange. Please feel free to ask questions about what did happen rather than writing your own stories. Eric didn't suffer because of Angie's difficulties as a kid. Angie is the one who suffered by not getting the attention or help she needed. Not the jerk. You're a grown man. You can choose where to live. Not to mention, moving doesn't mean you won't be their grandparent or in their life anymore. Plenty of grandparents don't live in the same state as their grandkids, and they still manage to maintain relationships. Generally speaking, I wouldn't advise picking favorites among your family, but they kinda pushed you into saying that your daughter is more important, and honestly, that sounds like a reasonable priority. I'm gonna sound like a jerk here probably, but is there any chance you are currently helping them a lot with childcare, and their reaction might be based on that? Not the jerk. I have 2 brothers, and they each have kids. I'm infertile. My mom chooses them over me all the time because grandkids. It's nice to see someone support someone without kids for a change. People seem to forget that childless adults still deserve their parents' attention too, even when they have grandkids. Info. Are you currently providing childcare for your son? OP. I spend time with the kids, but I don't provide childcare in any sense other than once in a while. They'll spend the night at Grandpa's house. Not the jerk. Your choice of where to live is your choice, full stop. You do not owe your adult kids anything, and your son taking this as, she wins, I lose, is not your problem. Am I the jerk for telling my friend I don't like staying at her place because she sucks at hosting? Me, 24 female, and my friend, 24 female, live 4 hours apart. We visited each other a couple of times over the last 2 to 3 years. Whenever she comes to my apartment, I plan ahead, asking in advance what she likes to eat, stocking my fridge more than usual, etc. Then when she arrives, I make it clear to her that she has free access to the kitchen and bathroom and to just ask if she needs anything. Depending how long she's staying, I'll clear space for her in my closet. I'm very mindful about making her feel welcome and at home, especially because she can be really shy and doesn't like to feel like she's bothering anyone. One time she forgot a towel, and it took 2 days of her air drying in the bathroom before I figured out she didn't bring one and offered her one myself. But when I stay at her place, to put it bluntly, she makes me feel like I'm bothering her as much as she fears she might be bothering me. Like if I stay at her place for 3 days, she'll offer me food maybe once. If I say I'm hungry or ask for food, she tells me she doesn't really have much in the fridge. I usually end up ordering in, or she tells me I can go grocery shopping if I want. It's just really weird to me to invite someone to your home and then tell them to go buy the food they'll be eating while they're there. I'm not expecting a banquet, but at least some acknowledgement that human beings need food would be nice. Other than that, she just doesn't really act like I'm there. She'll suddenly disappear midday for a 3-hour nap and not even tell me, or call someone else on the phone for hours just to chat. She rarely plans anything for us to do together in her city. Usually, if I don't want to spend my entire visit scrolling through my phone on her sofa, I'm the one who has to organize the plans. So one of our mutual friends who lives in her city is getting married soon, and I booked a hotel. My friend asked why I don't just stay with her, and I decided to be honest and told her that she's not a great host and she makes me feel unwelcome. She seemed upset by this, even though I don't really know how this could come as a shock, considering I've mentioned how unwelcome I felt at her place more than once, but I think she brushed it off. In response, she told me that she's dealing with money issues and work stress, which I get, but I told her that despite that, it seems like she's not the type of person who's mindful about whether their guest is having a good time or not, and I'd rather just have my own space. She said I was insensitive, and now things are strained between us. I could have just not said anything, but if my friend was unhappy with me, I would want to know. Am I the jerk for expecting too much here? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You were honest, and instead of expecting her to change, you made your own arrangements. If there is a strain on the relationship, it will be coming from how your friend is interpreting your feedback. Maybe contact her and say something like, "Listen, I don't want you to feel bad about it. People are different, with different characters and behaviors. You don't have to change yours so we stay friends. I'm not mad that I'm not staying at your place. It's just more comfortable this way for me, and I think it's also more comfortable for you. When you feel less strained, if you want, we can try again." Am I the jerk for telling my sister why I'm acting cold during family dinner? I, 25 female, am the middle kid in our family of 3 siblings, Allison, 28, Jake, who's 22. Sadly, I'm the stereotypical unseen middle child, while Allison is the golden child. She literally cannot do anything wrong based on my parents' opinion. I opened up a new bakery in our town. My mom invites the whole family for dinner once in a while, and this time she said the dinner was in my honor to celebrate my new job, which was sweet and I was pleasantly surprised. Allison lives in a different city. When she came home for dinner, she was not alone. She had her girlfriend, Elizabeth, who's 30, with her. Now, Allison gets a lot of hookups, and she uses her law degree to get these hookups, even on my friends back in the day. But she never brought her girlfriends home. She did this time, and everyone's attention was on her. Through the whole dinner, there was only one mention of my bakery. Ironically, it was from Elizabeth. The rest was spent on getting to know Elizabeth and her job, interests, how she met Allison, etc. It also didn't help that she was a psychiatrist and everyone had questions. I was beyond upset. She could have brought her home any other time, but chose this one time that our parents decided to acknowledge me. So I was cold throughout the dinner. Not that anyone really cared. At the end of the night, Allison asked me why I was sulking. I told her the truth, and I said she managed to make this about herself as well, that she couldn't live if the spotlight wasn't on her. She told me I should be happy for her because she's fallen in love and is extremely happy with her girlfriend and wanted her to be a part of this celebration. She knew exactly what bringing a girlfriend would do to this dinner. So I told her she could have done it literally any other night. Right now, we're still pretty distant. Am I the jerk here? Am I overreacting? Your parents are the jerks here. If that's the dynamic they've created and perpetuated, I'm sure Allison has never even considered that the spotlight is always on her. Not the jerk. It was insensitive, and I agree with you with her being wrong because she should have checked with you if it was okay. It was your celebration, not hers. It wasn't about her having to be in love. It was about your new job. It's normal to feel guilt when you've been unseen your whole life, and with what your sister said, she made it seem like you were selfish, which you weren't. Info. How often does your mom host these dinners, and how often does your sister come home for them? Because if this is a regular event, like every few months, done nominally this time to honor you, that's very different than a rare event specifically held for you, more akin to a graduation dinner. And if your sister lives an hour away and can get home frequently, that's very different than living 8-hour plane ride away. OP. My mom hosts these dinners 3 times a year. This time it was nominally done for me. My sister lives on the other side of the country, different coast, and is pretty far away. She used to visit very often when she was in school, but now that she's become a lawyer, she visits us twice a year, once for Christmas and once for any of these 3 dinners that mom hosts. In your post, you said she could have introduced her girlfriend literally any other night, yet she only comes to these dinners once a year? I understand OP is feeling hurt by things in the past, but she literally lives in the same town as her mom and is shocked when the daughter that lives on the other side of the country and only comes by 3 times a year gets more attention at the family dinner. If OP wasn't claiming that her sister was the golden child and OP was neglected, I would have instantly thought OP as being unreasonable and petty. Yeah, I think OP's feelings about this situation are colored by the family dynamic growing up, and that's very understandable, but it's causing her to read into things too much and see this situation as an extension of that history. Her sister and parents, also understandably, don't understand why she's upset because they're looking at this situation specifically and not OP's emotional baggage related to the history. When you take away the context, all Allison did was bring her girlfriend to her annual family dinner. That's a 100% normal thing that people do at family dinners. She's not at fault for taking her when there was zero reason to expect it might create a problem. OP says she knew what bringing a girlfriend would do to a dinner. I highly doubt she did. The economy of attention at a family dinner and how bringing a significant other to said dinner might upset the balance is just not a thing in most people's minds. My sister's kids destroyed my apartment. I finally gave her a piece of my mind. I, 23 female, live on my own. I'm single and never plan on getting married or having any kids. My sister, Rose, who's 29, is married and has 2 kids, twins, Ava and Zoe, who are 8. I'll be the first to say that her kids are brats. They're nothing but spoiled and expect everyone to drop everything to help them. Rose and her husband, James, have no self-control, and when their kids throw a tantrum, they'll immediately be given whatever it is they want. To see 2 8-year-olds boss around their parents is nothing but sad and pathetic. Since they're the only kids in the family, everyone practically worships them and never sees how bad they really are. It was my birthday recently, and I invited everyone over to my apartment to celebrate. When planning it, I mentioned that I was inviting a few of my friends too, and since there would be alcohol, I would feel more comfortable with it being a child-free event. Everyone agreed. Well, on the evening, she had to turn up late and with the kids. I told her to leave and come back when she found someone to look after them, but James and my parents both told me I was being too serious and that it was a party for all of us to enjoy. They didn't even care that it was my birthday or my apartment or my rules. In the 30 minutes Ava and Zoe were there, they smashed a plate, put their handprints all over my glass windows, got hurt after they opened the oven after I explicitly told them not to, and they threw a tantrum because I didn't have pretzels and refused to leave my own party to walk to the shops and buy some. The final straw was when they picked up a glass of wine somebody had left on the counter and they took it into my room, where they promptly spilt red wine all over my white sheets. I pulled James and Rose into my room and told them they need to leave right now before I made them pay for all of the damages. Rose told me that they were just kids and didn't mean to. I told her it was her fault for the way her kids turned out and that she raised them to be spoiled brats. She called me a selfish jerk before grabbing her kids and they all walked out. I haven't spoken to her or James since then, and while my parents think she shouldn't have said that, they told me it's still my fault for not planning a party that accommodated for her kids. I don't think I should have to change my own lifestyle to support her own choices, and I think I'm the one who's owed money for the damages and an apology. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They're just kids. Yeah, kids you haven't taught to behave and respect other people's property, and I want them around about as much as a dog who's not housebroken. Not the jerk, but make them pay for the damage anyway. It sounds like they're not just the kids, but the parents that need consequences, or they'll never learn.
Welcome to our newest subscribers, Not So Sweet Tart, Jocelyn, and Queen of Chaos. Do this, subscribe to the channel and tick the bell for all notifications, and you could get a shout out in our next video.